Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Facebook Live. I'm Governor Spencer Cox. I apologize that we're a little late getting started. We had some technical difficulties, but now and excited to answer some of your questions. We certainly appreciate those of you that have in ahead of time. We're going to answer as many of those as we can get to over the next half hour, maybe a little longer, as we have an opportunity to chat about the things that are so important to you. I want to thank you. Utah is an amazing place, and I feel so lucky to be your governor. It's been a wonderful summer. I hope you've enjoyed it. It feels like summer's just about over as high school football starts next week, and most of our kids will be heading back to school over the next couple of weeks. I can't believe that another summer has gone by. I want to talk to you just a little bit about fires in our state, because of course we are in a drought situation. We've been so blessed over the past few weeks with this monsoonal moisture that has impacted southern Utah and then northern Utah. We've had some record rainfall in some places. Obviously, we're still in a drought. Unfortunately, our reservoirs are still about 15% below where they would normally be this time of year, but it could be a lot worse, and we thought it was going to be a lot worse. Now, as of July 29th, I've got these numbers here, there were 642 total fire starts in our state. 351 of those were determined to be human caused, so 351 human caused fires. This number is down from 440 at the same time last year, and last year's number was down significantly from the year before that. That's because of you all making a significant difference. You're being much more careful with fire pits, much more careful with target shooting, better about checking your chains on trailers, not doing anything that would cause a spark and start a fire. And I just want to personally thank you. Obviously, 350 is still way too many fires, but we're getting better all the time. And to not have a significant fire burning in the state of Utah right now is truly remarkable. And I believe those, again, the great work of so many people. And we've been very blessed from the divine as we've gotten so much water over these past couple weeks. Okay, I want to jump right into your questions and see how many of these we can get answered. Okay, let's jump in here. We've got a couple questions, and maybe I'll just take them together. And they have to do about gas prices, and why are gas prices higher right now than in other parts of the country? Now, the good news is that gas prices are going down. They're going down here in the state of Utah. They're just going down slower than they are in other places. Unfortunately, that has been the trend over the past about 20 years, maybe even 25 years. We've seen that for lots of different reasons. Now, a couple things right off the top. Gas prices are more expensive because in one part because of what's happening in other parts of the world. So the Russian invasion in Ukraine, and that has certainly caused a significant increase in oil prices. We also, unfortunately, have a federal government that has been fairly punitive when it comes to oil and gas development here in the United States. We have plenty of oil and gas here to not just supply us, but to supply other parts of the world as well, including Europe. And you've heard me say this many times, I don't need to repeat it. We are advocating and really hope that President Biden would do more to unlock the potential that we have to lower gas prices all across the world, because this hurts especially those who are struggling, the economically disadvantaged in our state and our nation. But there are a couple things that impact us here in the state of Utah too. We are a fast-growing state, and we do not produce enough oil and gas in our state to provide for all of our needs. And so we have to, unfortunately, import gas from other places, which increases the cost of gasoline. We also don't have enough refining capacity here in the state of Utah. We need more refining capacity to lower the price of gasoline. But of course, because we have a federal government and a president right now who is so hostile towards the oil and gas industry, nobody wants to put in the hundreds of millions of dollars and wants to invest the hundreds of millions of dollars that it would take to build new refining capacity. And so we end up being more reliant on trucking and moving oil in from other places. Now, there is something that is that is very positive, and that is that just a few weeks ago, this is something we've been advocating for a long, long time. We got approval from the Forest Service on the Uinta Railway. This will allow us to move oil from the Uinta Basin to other places, to refineries, and significantly reduce the cost of transporting that oil, which is now done uniquely by truck. So that will certainly help us over time, but it hasn't gotten us there quite yet. And so unfortunately, we're at the whims of the market right now when it comes to helping to reduce the price of gasoline in our state, and we're hoping that will come down soon. Historically, as the rest of the country comes down, we come down slower, but as the reserves build up, then we even out with the rest of the country. So we're headed that direction, but it can't get there soon enough. Okay, we have, this is a question from Eva. How will you address the teacher crisis? Thank you for this question, Eva. This is one that I'm deeply concerned about. I think most of you know that my wife has a teaching degree. She got her degree in special education, a dual emphasis in early childhood and severe. And we have family members that teach. We love our teachers here in the state of Utah. And we have a teacher shortage, not just here. This is something that's happening in many states nationwide, but it's especially acute here because we have so many students. We are the youngest state in the nation, and we depend greatly on our amazing teachers who have had a really rough couple of years. And we hope that you feel the support of our administration and of the legislature. So there's a couple things that I think we can do, that we need to do to help teachers want to teach and to attract the next generation of teachers, and make sure that we're getting the very best and the very brightest. So I want to share a couple things with you. The first thing we do when we are struggling to attract talent in any job in this country, we pay them more. That's what we do. By the way, that's what we're doing right now. We've been struggling to get highway patrol people, and so we've increased the rate of pay for members of the highway patrol. It's the right thing to do. That's exactly what we should do, and I believe the same should hold for teachers. Now, I so appreciate the legislature. They've worked really hard to get us additional funding for the weighted pupil unit, which is the amount that as a state we put in per pupil, per student in the state. And we've had significant increases, significant investments in that over the past couple of years. And I'm very proud of that. Now, some of that gets to teachers, and we've seen some raises that are happening. Unfortunately, though, with inflation at such high levels, the highest level since the early 80s, the rate of pay is not keeping up. More importantly, though, I saw a statistic recently. It actually was a chart. And it gave me pause because I hadn't seen these numbers. Now, these were national numbers. We're still looking at the numbers for the state of Utah. But basically what it showed is the inflation-adjusted amount of spending per pupil, per student in this country, and how it's changed since 1970. So since 1970, the amount of money we're spending per student in education, K through 12 education in the country, and it was a line that went almost straight up like this, just directly up. In fact, I'm just trying to remember this off the top of my head, so you'll forgive me, but it was well over 100% increase. I think it was like 170% increase, something like that, increase since 1970 on the amount we're spending per pupil. And then it showed the inflation-adjusted rate that we're paying teachers since 1970 and how that had changed. So again, adjusting for inflation, how much more are we paying teachers now than we were in 1970? Well, it won't surprise a teacher out there to know that line is basically flat. So we're paying out 7 or 8% more than we were in 1970 for teachers. So a little bit, adjusted for inflation. So we're better off than we were as a teacher in 1970. But when we're spending almost 200% more per student, but teachers are only getting a little bit of that, where is that going? Certainly it's going to other professionals, and that's probably a good thing. We have teachers' assistants now, we have reading specialists, we have all these other important people that we're hiring to help educate our students. So I think that's important. Certainly a portion of that is going to administration. We have wonderful administrators, and I think they deserve to be well compensated. Probably a lot of it is going to buildings. buildings. We're building nicer and fancier buildings than ever before. I'm not sure that that's really that necessary. I certainly think that we should have nice places for kids to go to school, but I would rather see that money get used other places. And so we're looking at ways that we can better compensate our teachers. It's something that I would like to see happen this year. Another increase, a significant increase for our teachers, so that we can make a difference. And again, keep our teachers here, because almost half our teachers leave in the first 5 years of becoming teachers. So keep our teachers here and attract a new generation of teachers. The last thing I want to say here is we've added a regulatory burden to our teachers. You are the experts. And I want to make sure that you're able to work with parents, work with students, understand what's right for our kids and what's right for our families, and spend a little less time on federal paperwork and state paperwork that really doesn't make our kids any smarter, or doesn't help you in the classroom. And so we're looking at ways that we can peel back on some of those unnecessary regulatory requirements so you can do what you do best, and that's teach. So hopefully we can make a difference over the next few years. Thank you. Sorry, that's a long answer, but I think it's a really, really important one. Okay, let's see. We've got some other questions that have come in. Let's see. Okay, this is from Charmaine, I believe. What is your opinion of the community members questioning election integrity? Thank you for that question. Certainly, that seems to be the flavor of the day. If a candidate that we support doesn't win and it's a close election, then we immediately call into question the integrity of our elections. Now, look, I think questioning the integrity of our election system can actually be healthy. And I think it's really important. I don't think we should ever take anything for granted. I don't think we should just blindly trust people. I think that can be a mistake. Certainly, we have historical precedent where people have tried to do bad things and have tried to hijack elections in some way. But there's a difference between just making up allegations and saying, hey, let's look at what we're doing and let's get a deep understanding. I appreciate Lieutenant Governor Henderson. This is what she does. She is in charge of overseeing elections. Doesn't mean she runs elections. We don't do that. That is always done at the county level. The state does not run elections. What we do is we oversee elections. So we work on election integrity issues. We make sure that we're holding people accountable. We certainly help with questions that come in from our county clerks who run the elections, and we try to make elections simple and easy and secure. That's our job. When I was Lieutenant Governor and now Lieutenant Governor Henderson, really proud of the people who are working so hard to do this. Now, I want to say this. Every single year since I've been involved in elections, so that was about 9-10 years ago when I got started, we have passed, the legislature has passed, we've signed into law, worked closely with them to develop election security bills every single year. And every single year we have done something to increase and enhance the security of our elections. And I'm really proud of that. In fact, we've become the model for the rest of the nation. We have states call us all the time, trying to understand how we run elections and how we're able to do it in a way that keeps them safe and secure. Now, one of the things that we encouraged people to do this year, as we were getting close to the primary election, was to go and visit with your county clerk and take a tour and see exactly how they process the ballots. See exactly the security measures that they have in place. By the way, one of the security measures we added this year was on drop boxes. We have a security camera that is filming those drop boxes at all times to make sure that nobody can go and tamper with those drop boxes. So we felt like that was a great thing to do. We have audits every year in every one of our election systems to make sure that they are functioning the right way. So we do it before an election, we do it right after election, we do these sample audits to make sure that things are working. And then, of course, in a very close race, we have recounts and we do sample audits as well to make sure that the machines are functioning correctly. And so I have an incredible amount of faith in our elections. And I want you to have faith in our elections as well. I want to be as open and transparent as we possibly can. But I do think it is very dangerous when people, just because they lost, decide to just make stuff up. And that decreases faith in elections. And that's not healthy. Making people prove a negative, something that doesn't exist, is virtually impossible, and we'll never be able to satisfy everyone with that. So please, what I hope is that you'll be constructive, that you'll submit ideas, that you'll actually take time to go figure out how things are working. And if you want to change something, of course, we do that through legislation, and everyone can work to do that with their individual legislators. So thank you for a great question, a very important one. Okay, let's see. It looks like we have some, not surprisingly, we have some water-related questions. So let's go ahead and get to those. First one is from Diana. Can you please incentivize citizens to get rid of their lawns and landscape with drought-tolerant plants? And the answer is yes, Diana, we absolutely can do that. And in fact, that's one of the things that we're doing. So just this past legislative session, we became the first state in the nation to pass a statewide water-wise incentive program. Now, other states have some of these. They're not a statewide plan. We've had some of these in some of our water districts, but now for the first time, we have a statewide one. And the legislature gave us $5 million. And the idea is that we would help families and homeowners that want to change their landscaping and install water-wise landscaping. And I have to tell you, the response has been overwhelming. It's just phenomenal. We had a 500% increase in requests for this type of support, and so we're going to spend all that money very quickly, and not even come close to the demand that is out there. And so we're hoping that with the success of this program, the legislature will be willing to give us more money next year, so we can do even more than that. A couple other things that we did that are really important too. What we don't want to do is to have communities that are just are having families put in more grass and then paying to change that grass over later on, right? That doesn't make any sense. And so we're working, the priority for these programs will go to communities who are also implementing water-wise practices with new developments in their communities. And so we're hoping that will incentivize communities to be better at this, and to also incentivize people with new lawns, new houses to use less grass and more water-wise landscaping. The other thing that we did along these lines, by the way, we passed about 12 bills. I've talked about many of those, and we'll probably get to more of them as this goes on. But we now require communities to plan their development. So any new developments being approved, new houses, they have to make sure that they have water associated with those, and they have enough water to provide for those homes. So many communities were doing this anyway, but there were some that weren't, and now it's in state law and it's required. So thank you for that. Okay, next up, what is the plan to conserve the amount of water farmers use? I support farmers' use of water. Are automated irrigation systems available for alfalfa farmers? The state can incentivize farmers to upgrade too. Great question. And the answer is yes, and this is a very important one. So we recognize that agriculture, we all have a role to play here in conserving water, but agriculture has the biggest role to play. I say we because I'm a farmer. We use about 75% of the state's water for agriculture. Again, that's very important because we like food, and you have to have water to have food. Every type of food has a water input. And so that's very important for us. So we don't want to take water away from ag, but we have to be more responsible. And we can do that as farmers. We can do that by improving the technology that we're using. The new irrigation systems that are out there can save significant amounts of water. In some cases, almost half. And also improve outcomes, so improve yield, which is awesome. That's the perfect thing when you can save water and increase output. Now we're talking, and this is something that is very interesting to people. So in just earlier this year, in the last legislative session, we did a couple really important things. One of those was that we set aside $70 million in this water optimization, agriculture water optimization fund. And the whole purpose of that is to do, just like we're doing on the landscaping front, to incentivize and help farmers and water districts, ag water districts to take on projects, canals, lining canals, covering canals, improving irrigation systems, the sprinkler systems that farmers use, and using that money to help them implement this new technology, which will give us significant savings. In fact, from the $70 million, basically we'll save enough water, and it's about 7 billion gallons of water. That's the equivalent of a fairly large reservoir. That's like building a new reservoir in our state, just by implementing those new techniques and that $70 million. So we're very excited about that. Again, we're hoping that we'll be able to get even more funding next year for that piece of it. One of the other things that we're doing that I think is really unique and will especially help with the Great Salt Lake is, historically, we've had a program where, or the law in the state of Utah is a use it or lose it law. So if you have water rights, but you're not using them for what we call beneficial use, and that farming, of course, is a beneficial use, then if you didn't use that, then you lose those water rights. So we had this incentive to use up all the water, use up all your water rights, and not let any of that water get to the end of wherever it's going. In this case, specifically the Great Salt Lake. And so we've changed that law, which will now allow farmers, especially, but other water rights holders, to lease their water. And the state set aside $40 million for leasing, to just let it go and go into the Great Salt Lake. That is now considered a beneficial use, getting it to the Great Salt Lake. So you can also imagine a scenario where a farmer might want to get 2 crops. Maybe that's their best. They get 2 crops of alfalfa. The 3rd crop or the 4th crop aren't as good, but they do it anyway because, again, they don't want to lose their water, and at least they get something out of it. Instead, then they could get their 2 crops and then lease that water, get it to the Great Salt Lake, and make a tremendous difference. So some really cool things are happening here, some big changes, and we look forward to seeing how much that changes the water storage, and again, especially the levels of the Great Salt Lake. So thank you for that question. Okay, here we have, so another question from Avik, specifically about the Great Salt Lake. So what are the steps taken to save the Great Salt Lake? So I mentioned a couple of those are already, Avik. I will just add that we are also working with the federal government and our senators, Senator Romney, Representative Stewart, and Owens and Curtis, and they've all been working together. Representative Blakemore, they've been working together on a couple bills that will impact the Great Salt Lake as well. Some additional studies using the Army Corps of Engineers to look at what's happening with the lake levels and what we can do to get more water there. So we anticipate that will help tremendously. One of the other things that we're doing is we have some projects to improve the stream flow into the Great Salt Lake. We do that by removing the invasive species that exist along these lakes. So we get these different plants and trees that aren't native. They're invasive, and they grow into these areas and they suck water out. They're not actually good for the environment. They're actually bad for the environment. And we can go in and treat these areas, remove some of the Russian olives and other invasive species of plants, and that significantly increases stream flow. So that's just another thing that we're doing. And we have some incredible experts that are working on this. So that's a good one and a great question. Okay, we'll take a couple more. We've got from Mike, why can't we run a pipeline from the Colorado River, Columbia River, from the Columbia River to the Colorado, or from Lake Michigan to the Colorado River to supply water for Utah, Nevada, and California, and so forth? And great question. We are looking at all options. We actually are looking at pipelines. Pipelines are very expensive, and so we would want to be cautious about that. But we are looking, and it's not just Utah that's looking, by the way. Other states are looking at this as well. I think there will be some regional opportunities for us to look at this together and see what we can do to move water around as the climate changes. And we've certainly seen that happening. Some places will have more water than they're used to having. Some places will have less. Are we able to move that water from one place to another? Desalination is an interesting play. This is more for the California areas and even Arizona. Certainly in Israel, they do a tremendous amount around desalination. So taking ocean water, removing the salt, and turning it into drinking water or agriculture water is something that can be done. And we're obviously that's a little farther away from us, but certainly if we're able to help those areas in the lower basin states of the Colorado River, that would allow for more water for the upper basin states of the Colorado River, and possibly a way to offset. So I can imagine a way where we're all looking at all those options and the possibility to make some changes. Okay, so we have a question from Hannah. Are you concerned about monkeypox in Utah? And what are your thoughts regarding public health as we prepare to go back to school? So thank you, Hannah, for that question. I am concerned about monkeypox in Utah. We have certainly seen the spread of monkeypox happening, not just in Utah, but of course across the nation. And it's a public health concern. But for most Utahns, there is very little risk. We understand monkeypox. We know how it is transmitted, know how it is spread. Unfortunately, the federal government, again, has been a little slow to react, and some of the CDC, in conjunction with the FDA, and some of the same mistakes they made around COVID, we've seen with monkeypox as well. I don't think it's too late to get ahead of that, to make a difference. Certainly, we are working to get vaccines into the state, although there's limited amounts of vaccines to those who may be exposed or those who need it. I think it's very important that we be very clear about where most of the transmission is happening. It is happening in the gay community, specifically among men, and that's where we are seeing almost all of the spread happening in the United States. And so I would say to the LGBTQ community, that is an area where you need to be much more careful and much more cautious. And so I would encourage that for people. For others, there is very, very little risk of any type of transmission, but it is so critical, and we want to protect the health of everyone and making sure we're doing that. Otherwise, we feel really good about public health in the state of Utah as we go back into school. My daughter is in high school right now, and she'll be going back in just a couple of weeks, and we feel really good about where we are, especially with regards to the coronavirus. Again, we have vaccines now available for all Utahns boosters. We know that we will be having a different vaccine that will be coming soon that will help because the disease has mutated so many times. We'll have a more effective vaccine, and that's especially for our elderly population. If you're over the age of 50, that's where we're seeing the disease cause the most harm for unvaccinated people over the age of 50 and unboosted. So we're very hopeful that this new vaccine that will be coming out soon will help even more for people over the age of 50. For young people, again, vaccines are available, but the rate of spread is so low. The rate of hospitalization is incredibly low now that we have so much immunity, both natural from people who've gotten the disease as well as through vaccines. Okay, I can tell you, I do have some of the numbers. We have 57 confirmed and probable cases of monkeypox reported in the state of Utah. So I didn't have those numbers before, but I have those now right in front of me. Most of those are in Salt Lake County, by the way, about 42 of those. We have just a handful, 4 in Davis County, 1 in Summit County, 6 in Utah County, and 4 in Weber and Morgan County. And just over 2,000 people have been vaccinated for monkeypox in those communities. All right, thank you so much for that question. Maybe we'll do just a couple more, and then we'll wrap things up. Okay, are you concerned about the large number of refugees coming to Utah? What is your plan to help welcome those wonderful people? Thank you for that great question. I'm happy to say that I'm not worried about the number of refugees that are coming into the state of Utah. I will say that was from Ernso. Thank you for that question, because we are such a welcoming community, and it's been so amazing and so heartwarming to see the way that Utahns have responded. There was an article that was written just a little over a week ago, specifically about the Utah's response to refugees that have come here, and many of those refugees were interviewed, and they talked about how they were shocked at how welcome they felt, how loved they felt, how people had taken care of them. And the good news is that they are working, they're productive members of our state. They're giving back. We have a labor shortage right now, and so they're helping with that labor shortage, making a big difference. We've been able to help them get into housing, and the numbers aren't huge. So we've had about 900 Afghan refugees. We've had some Ukrainian refugees that are coming, and they're living specifically, Ukrainian refugees are living with family. They have a pre-existing relationship before they came here. And so Utah is such an amazing and welcoming place. And I just want to thank you, the citizens of Utah who have welcomed refugees with open arms. Thank you for what you're doing. Here's one from Grant that I've not been asked yet. It says, how do you feel about the FBI and what happened last night at Mar-a-Lago? For those of you that don't know, and I'm assuming most of you do, there was an FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago where former President Trump resides. I think he was in New York at the time, and the FBI did a search of his house. And so I've been thinking about this over the past 24 hours since I found out about that, Grant. And there are two things, maybe three things I think that have kind of risen in my mind. The first one is we really don't have much information. So we don't know what the warrant said. We do know that the warrant was issued by a judge. I think we know this. I think it has something to do potentially with confidential documents that were taken from the White House, although I'm not positive about that piece, so don't quote me on that one. And so I'm always cautious to opine when I don't have enough information, and I wish that more people in this country were more cautious to opine when they don't have enough information. But all of that being said, let me opine because you asked for it, so I'm going to do that anyway. There are two competing things here that I think are really important to say. The first is that anytime there is something that happens with a former president of the United States, and when we have another party in office, there is automatically going to be a reflexive movement to believe that it is political. And I hope that the Department of Justice and the FBI really understand that and understood that when they undertook this. We do not believe in punishing our political enemies or in using the levers of justice or the police powers of our state to punish in any way our political adversaries. I don't believe that Republicans should do that to Democrats. I don't believe that Democrats should do that to Republicans. And anytime you have one party who is instigating or in authority and instigating any type of adversarial event like this against a leader of another party, someone like President Trump, I believe we have to be incredibly cautious. And it worries me. And I hope that we soon understand exactly what it was and why it was. I think that they have a duty to let the American people know exactly what it is they're doing. And I have to tell you, if this was undertaken for anything that isn't 100% above board, with plenty of evidence ahead of time, whatever evidence they had to use to convince the judge to do this, then I think they should be held accountable for that. And I'm really worried about that because there's so much distrust in the system right now. And I recognize that again, my party is responsible for some of that distrust. And I've tried to push back on that at every turn. At the same time, I think it's important to say that I don't believe anybody should be above the law. If there is wrongdoing, and if laws indeed were broken, and again, I have no way of knowing. I wish I did. I wish that we had more information so we can make this determination. But I don't think that even former presidents should have an exception to the law, right? So this is the thing that makes the United States so different and so unique and so cool. That is, on the one hand, again, we should never use the levers of power to attack someone from another party. And at the same time, nobody, not President Biden, not President Trump, not the president's children, should be above the law or exempt from it. If it's something that you or I would get arrested for, or you or I, if our houses if the FBI would search my house or your house for this, then I think they should search the president's house for this. But again, this has to be held to an incredibly high standard. And I'm really worried that we don't know anything, and so we all assume the worst, right? Democrats assume that this is the greatest thing ever, and of course he's guilty, and whatever it is, whatever they've imagined. And Republicans believe that this is purely political, that it's wrong, and that we have to fight back. Both of those are the wrong reactions. I think we should withhold judgment until we know, but that judgment has to come, and I hope it comes very, very soon. And I hope that we get to hold everyone accountable, that we hold the FBI directors accountable, that we hold the Department of Justice accountable, and that we hold the former presidents accountable, regardless of what party they're in. So I hope that helps. I really don't have any more information than you have, or than what we've seen on the news. And as soon as we do, then maybe we can have a conversation about that and have a different have a different way of talking about this. So, okay, we have gone so long, and we are out of time. It's so many good questions, and I apologize that we weren't able to get to all of them, but we love doing these, and we'll do one again next month. Again, I hope you're doing well. I hope you've had a wonderful summer. I hate that the summer is almost over, that it always goes by too fast, but I feel so blessed to live here in the state of Utah. I had a chance to be with my fellow Western governors a couple weeks ago, and then the week before that I was with the national governors in Maine, and I get to meet my fellow governors and talk about the great things that are happening in their state. But I always leave with the assurance that we live in the best state in the nation, and that I wouldn't trade it with anybody else. So enjoy life. Thanks for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.